Because as far as we are concerned, analyzing the dynamics of the politics of April, May 2000, there was never any defense of democracy. What democracy was being challenged at the time, that there was need for an organization in defense of democracy. What was being challenged then that could have been labeled in defense of democracy? What was being challenged? But they gave themselves a title that sounded good and was consistent with the old left. And so you saw the old left, the ruminants of the left, the leftovers as we call them, gravitating toward this organization, because for once more in their lives they could be seen in the forefront of Vincentian politics. Nobody can tell us who posed the biggest threat to democracy in this country at the time, that it needed an organization to come to the defense of democracy. When the trade union was negotiating, and the Musta's Minister of Finance simply said, we cannot make that. But on the sidelines, the opposition was able to raise the issue of the quote-unquote greedy bill. And so they pitted that against the responsiveness or the response of the government to the teachers' union demand. That was the politicking. In hindsight, one may well conclude that if there was indeed a threat to Vincentian democracy at any time in 2000, it could only have come from the politicians who were piggybacking on the trade unions to create social and political turmoil. Not a single politician back then, true to today, can reasonably point to any threat to Vincentian democracy in 2000 that warranted a revolution such as has since been claimed. Not a single one of them can point to it. But it sounds good in the aftermath to be pompous on top of a platform and talk about the roadblock revolution that we led. You see, just another look is saying today that at the time in 2000, the Commercial, Technical and Allied Workers Union, at the time led by Alice Mandeville, did not have an interest in joining any odd thing or joining the teachers' union in protesting against the government. That is a reality, and everybody knew that. But that was until such time as political gerrymandering was beginning to impact the membership of the CTAWU on the windward side of the island. You remember, they started throwing talks about there's the possibility that the CTAWU membership in North Central Windward area were contemplating leaving the union en masse and perhaps starting their own union. And that, more than anything else, precipitated a capitulation, a surrendering of CTAWU to become part of the process. And they were assumed to be under the odd thing. Much the same thing happened with the National Workers' Movement, then led and still led by Noel Jackson. There were rumblings in the corridors about the possibility that workers, the hydroelectric aspect on the windward side of the island, were contemplating leaving the NWM en masse and perhaps joining with those who were threatening to leave the CTAW en masse from that side of the island. So here was the talk. Is it by accident that the talk then of subgroupings of both the Commercial Technical Allied Workers Union and the National Workers Movement, who were talking about leaving en masse, that whole set of rumblings came from the windward side of the island, more particularly north central windward area? Is there any accident? You see, we tend not to want to apply our critical thinking skills, and that's why people are laughing at us. Both CTAW and NWM had initially resisted attempts to be part of any movement against the government at the time. But eventually, they felt themselves compelled to surrender and allow themselves to be seen as part of the odd thing, led by a group of has-been politicians, ruminants of the left, the leftovers. Then there was the role of the omnibus owners and operators. Suddenly, the state of the roads, the cost of vehicle parts became larger than life issues, such that they formed part of the odd thing and aligned themselves with what they saw as a broader national struggle, which essentially was a political movement to oust the New Democratic Party. For many years, dear friends, we asked the question, who paid them to be part? Were they paid? Were they paid? For many years before and after 2000, the exact or worse conditions existed as far as the state of the nation's roads and the costs associated with vehicle maintenance are concerned, but they did not become decidedly political. What was the difference in 2000? Just another look says it was the influence of the then opposition Unity Labour Party. What made the omnibus owners and operators political in 2000? Was it protest payment? Or was it protest and then get paid? You see, the point being made here, dear friends, is that while the ULP has, since winning the general elections in 2001, been suggesting that there was some sort of revolution in 2000 in this country, as the Prime Minister likes to declare, a dastardly untruth. It must also be noted that none of the trade unions as an entity was ever involved in the setting up of roadblocks that prevented many Vincentians from getting to work and getting to school. This was in large measure a result of the indefatigable efforts of Julian Francis and his A-team. And Just Another Look has always said that. We have always indicated, as far back as 2000 itself, during the turmoil, that without fear of contradiction, while many of those who now claim there was a roadblock revolution in 2000 and in which they were involved They did not even know how the roads were blocked each night, whilst they slept comfortably. They did not know how the waste master bins were being carried from one area to another and overturned to block the road. The plot came to a head when James Mitchell capitulated to the political clamor. It was on the Grandans Beach in Grenada that it all became clear who were the major players in the unfolding plot. Who traversed the beach? James Mitchell and Ralph Gonsalves. To those heads of the Caribbean governments who were here in Canoan during the crisis, they were clear in their own minds. And don't worry about any odd thing or what have you. The fact of the matter is that it is a political situation. Who brought the solution forward? The two politicians, Mitchell and Gonsalves. The trade union leaders who started the process and those who later joined him, as well as the leftovers and ruminants of the left that patted themselves on the back as what we called the odd thing, were left inside as the two politicians traversed the Grandans Beach. The so-called Grand Beach Accord appears to have been a Mitchell-Gonsalves agreement more than anything else. It should be noted, though, that the regional media appeared to have credited the odd thing for having been the major protagonist of the change. That is a revelation of the extent to which the plot was so carefully massaged and implemented that even the regional media did not understand what was really happening in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Was Gonsalves a part of the odd thing? We were told that the odd thing was independent of any politics. We were told that the odd thing was an institution that came to stay. It would defend democracy forever in the future. So much did the ruminants of the left and the leftovers see dreams coming to light. See dreams coming reality. Their place in the sun, their moment to shine had finally arrived yet again in the twilight of their years. It disappeared faster than Miss Janie Fire. Is it not surprising and interesting that following the Grand Beach Accord, the odd thing disappeared without a trace? The key players in the organization got lost as the plot thickened and the dynamics changed. Just Another Look is insistent that those who have taken the time to review the real politics of the turmoil of 2000 must be laughing at just how gullible our electorate had become. If we may slightly alter the words of Chalkdust, them people laughing at we. In 2009, the NDP upset the ULP's plot in respect of a proposed new constitution for this country. The response of Vincentians to the ULP's referendum sent ripples across the entire ULP leadership. They knew then, just as the rest of us knew, that while the referendum was officially a referendum on a proposed new constitution, it was in fact a referendum on Ralph Gonsalves and his leadership and the Unity Labour Party. So when they were so soundly defeated in the referendum, any plans he may have had for an early elections were dashed, and he had to wait until 2005. Sorry, 2010. And so in 2010, December, we had the elections. New plots had been conceived. Results of the referendum reverberated in the general elections of December 2010, when the NDP made significant inroads by taking 7 of the available 15 seats. Prior to 2010, the NDP could only muster 3 victories in the general elections: 2001 and 2005. Many Vincentians still seem to think that the election of 2010, much like that of 2015, were actually won by the opposition New Democratic Party. In 2015, 5 years after the 2010 debacle for the ULP, the party had as its main platform the almost completed Argyle International Airport. It also boasted that the support for the party had so grown because of the party's performance in government that it was going to body slam the NDP in every constituency in the 2015 general elections. They boasted that the organization was doing so well that even the NDP seats in the Grenadines were under threat. That's what they boasted. The NDP, they said, was on the verge of an almost total wipeout. They forget now that is what they said on the political platforms. On the night of the elections of 2015, it was a veritable scared ULP that sat before the television sets, hoping to scrape home. Well, the outcome of the 2015 elections is still in contention, and they're still very scared. It is amazing, therefore, that the same ULP that in 1998 chided the NDP for believing that the simple one-seat majority would allow for good governance should twice in succession, 2010 and 2015, accept that it could be a model for good governance with a similar one-seat majority. Who then is laughing at we? Them people. You see, just another look is here making the point that people who seriously apply their critical thinking skills to analyze the politics of St. Vincent and the Grenadines must inevitably be laughing at us. And trust us when we say they have more reason to laugh. They have more reason to laugh at us. We must be one of the only countries in the world where a woman could be asked to enter a plea in the nation's court and, after pleading not guilty, and without any further word or action thereafter, be deemed unfit to enter a plea and then be committed to the mental health center for observation. Incredible. Incredible. Small wonder then that the prestigious Caribbean Association for Feminist Research and Action, CAFRA, has added its voice across the world, calling for an independent inquiry into the administration of justice's conduct on the Yogi Farrell case. CAFRA raises the very concerns that many Vincentians have been asking since the case started. The eyes of the world are upon us But our authorities seem unconcerned. Unconcerned. Some are claiming to have information that would support a case for blackmail. But instead, the authorities have gone for abusive language. If our authorities here were ever serious about abusive language, we might as well build a cage around Kingstown. We wouldn't have place to hold the people who use abusive language every day. And that might very well include law officers. But it's Yogi Farrell. We see her as a nobody. It was fine. It was fine for people to use her. But it is, as far as some people are concerned now, she's a nobody. You see, the authorities here are caught up in their own folly and seemingly jaundiced political practice. And while the Yogi Farrell case is no laughing matter, the way in which it has been played out in St. Vincent and the Grenadines leaves us and our jurisprudence as the laughing stock of the world. The laughing stock of the world. Camilo may choose to stay silent, dignified or otherwise, on the matter of his relationship with Yogi Farrell. But the court of public opinion may well have been able to access a great deal of information, enough to allow them to make their own informed judgments. It may well be that that same Vincentian public may already be committed to an informed opinion as to whether he, Camilo, should be considered for the future leadership of the ruling party and or the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. You want more reasons to laugh at us? Or more understanding? We are probably the only country in the world, a democratic society, where the opposition can move a motion of no confidence. And it is amended by the government side in Parliament to a confidence motion in the government. And where we can find lawyers who are supposed to be of some standard who declare that, listen, when you bring a no confidence motion, you know, it is in fact a confidence motion if you lose. So it's a 6-1, half a dozen of the other. Those are lawyers for you, man. Those are lawyers for you. Only country in the world where this has been happening. We can take a no confidence motion and transform it into a confidence motion. Friends, that's why them people laughing at we. Because they can't believe that in this day and age there exists a people that will stand that utter nonsense. Yeah? So, the Prime Minister who once boasted that he was the godfather of protests cannot take protests. Remember the time we talk about the middle finger? He cannot take protests. Try and remember, you know, the first time that Just Another Look heard the Prime Minister talk about people of the lowest common denominator, etc., etc. Can you remember when that was? It was at the reopening of the Peace Memorial Hall. It was one of the first major projects after they came to office in 2001. the reopening of the Peace Memorial Hall. Try and remember if you heard him use those phrases in public before that, since taking office. And try and remember what happened at that time. Because here was one of the first major projects they were going to open. And what happened outside? He met protestations from persons with disabilities. Because they could not believe that after all of their pleading, that we would have remodeled the Peace Memorial Hall in what was supposed to be an enlightened period under a new political dispensation. And it was not made user-friendly for them. There were no ramps placed for them. So they were protesting. We don't know if that was the reason, but we know that that was among the first occasions that we heard references of that kind of derogatory nature. So it begs the question, was there a relationship? The same with the middle finger. While he may say all sorts of things about the perfect middle finger or not, that is his problem. The fact of the matter is that the Vincentian public knows what that meant, what the sign meant. But it is when it took place that was important. It was because he was confronted by a major protest on his way to Parliament. Is it not? Was it not fair to conclude? He says it was a particular individual that was involved. Be that as it may. Be that as it may, people know and understand what the signal meant, what the symbol meant with that middle finger. Nobody is lost by any mumbo-jumbo political explanation. And he keeps making reference to it from time to time. The godfather of protest cannot take protest. So when recently, going to the budget estimates and budget, he realized that for the budget he had protest. You hear him on television talking about they lost. Everybody know the NDP lost as far as you are concerned. But the courts haven't said so in the same precise terms that you have. And you have to keep hoping that the courts rule in your favor. But if it doesn't, then you know what the court is saying to the nation. But the godfather of protest cannot take protest. Because he seemed to believe that he may have had a monopoly on protest. So they're laughing at us. And they're laughing at us because in September 2016, news broke that the government of this country had sold 31 acres of land at Mount Wind, Peters Hope, for the princely sum of $7 million EC. Beachfront property expanded. 31 acres sold for $7 million. That translates to be about just over $5 EC. Alright, per square foot. Okay? If you wanted to buy it as a Vincentian, ain't nobody were going to offer you $5.18 a square foot. In that farming land. So how it gets sold for this kind of price? What was the deal? We are not referring to just any old piece of land, you know. We are speaking of an area in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, relatively well sheltered enough to facilitate hotel development of a magnitude as yet unseen in the country's history. So what was the deal? Who then is laughing at us for the price at which we have given away our patrimony? We didn't lease it, you know. We sold it. We sold it. We sold it not to Vincentians. If we knew we wanted people to buy that property at that price, endless Vincentians would have gone forward. So how do you justify the selling price for such a beautiful piece of real estate? But before we get ahead of ourselves, let us hanker back to a year earlier, July 2015, when we were first informed of the potential attendant to this investment. Eyewitness News reported that Gonzalez said at the time, quote, "It is a huge investment. The developers on whom we have done the appropriate due diligence, they will be doing hotel development and also villas. They are doing a golf course with a clubhouse." This is 2015. 2015. The government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines will retain ownership of the golf course and the clubhouse facilities, but also the management for the hotel. The enterprise will manage it, Gonzalez said. The developers also, as part of the consideration, they have agreed to do a creative arts center and convention center right here near to the financial complex, and a boardwalk and shops where you have Chinatown, as it is called. End of quote. As in July of 2015. In September 2016, we have no mention of golf course and clubhouse up where Mount Twin Peter's Hope is. We haven't heard anything about that. What is not mentioned anywhere, however, is whether there is any interest by those investors in the establishment of a medical marijuana facility attendant to the project anywhere in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. That has not been mentioned. So we don't know if it exists. Right? The sudden interest in medical marijuana by some who were the defenders of growers in this very country is nothing short of amazing. We are so very busy about medical marijuana that we have made idiots of ourselves and allowed the world to continue to laugh at us. The Frederick Nesbitt debacle that occurred here recently only serves to highlight how much we do to make certain that people continue to laugh at us. We are now being told that the information on Nesbitt was proffered by the group that brought him to SVG. In other words, we did not engage in any due diligence. Some investors bring him and we leave him to do whatever he wants. But we went and joined him and televised his testing of our marijuana. The people must be laughing at we. When people reveal, well, here, what is this man's credential? People say, it's not us, you know. The group that invested bring him. But we were there. In 2015, we boasted we had done due diligence in respect of the investors from Mount Twin Peter's Hope. But in 2018, we have groupings coming to invest in medical marijuana. Did we do the due diligence? Did we? Is this not the claim that the ULP and its protagonists made of the NDP several years ago, when the latter, in government, got into bed with Valdetaro, etc., and we ended up with the Otley Hall shipyard and marina? Is this not the same group? How can we simply pull our tails between our legs now that people have been able to reference information on Facebook on Nesbitt, and he may well not be the quote-unquote esteemed scientist that he was introduced as being at the time he was doing the testing? Vincentians who have been involved with marijuana here for decades are well aware of its quality and of its potency. Vincentians know that. Nobody else come here and tell them that. But we try now to scienticize the whole process. We're bringing in experts on marijuana. When we have experts here, that is why they used to make so much money. Our local experts made so much money because of the richness of the product that they produced. We have to bring people from outside to tell us how rich our marijuana is. Just Another Look will deal with the marijuana issue in full detail in a later program. Because Just Another Look is saying today, the 17th day of February 2018, that when the investors are finished with us, the last stage will be much worse than the first. Our small farmers will get nothing. They will end up being producers for those investors. It will be no different as our initial agreement with Geest. It will be no different that our initial agreements with these people who have our cocoa, where you have to buy their seeds, you have to sell only to them, etc., etc. When will we learn? When will we, as an independent nation, learn to look after the interests of our own people? You didn't think it important to get a group of local people to buy Mount Win Peters Hope and develop it into a major facility. We didn't think of that because we're not good enough for that. And after the years of harassing our marijuana growers, after the years of them continuing to proclaim the medicinal value of the product, we browbeat them, we do them all sorts of things. We prosecute them for years. And now we will turn around and ensure that they become suppliers, hewers of wood and drawers of water for the major investors that are coming from abroad. When will our people learn? When will our people stand up and be recognized as the rightful heirs to this country? But we will deal with that in another edition of Just Another Look. You hear it only on Nice Radio. And we tell you, as we always do, today, the 17th day of February 2018, marks 2,648 days since the disappearance of J8VAX SVG Air. That's SXY. The disappearance of J8SXY. We'll tell you about J8VAX. But J8SXY disappeared 2,648 days ago. The issue of Patricia Bowman, crushed to death in her own vehicle on the 19th of September 2008. Crushed to death in her own car on her way to work. Her husband, Alban Bowman, is still awaiting justice. Today marks 4,071 days since the disappearance of J8VAX, piloted by Dominic Gonzalez, with Rashid Ibrahim on board. J8SXY disappeared inside of 4 years, just inside of 4 years after that. And we continue to ask for an inquiry into the disappearance of J8SXY. We want to see the investigative report. You did one for VAX, which we rejected. We rejected it. Other people accepted it. And we are saying to you that we still need the one for J8SXY. The authorities know that that is only fair. But we are yet to see such a report, and we ask that it be produced. Enough said. Dear friends, you have been listening to another edition of Nice Radio's Callaloo presentation, Just Another Look. Just Another Look is an innovative, exciting, albeit decidedly provocative, and yes, certainly controversial, socio-political analysis of issues of a local, regional, and international nature. Just Another Look is heard only on Nice Radio, first aired on Saturdays at 6 p.m., which repeat broadcasts on Sundays at 9 p.m. I am, of course, remember, you can catch us on the World Wide Web, www.niceradio.info, or you can check out our Just Another Look blog, www.justanotherlook.com. I am, of course, Keith Joseph.